If you've ever been window shopping for an audio interface, the prices on these things might not always make sense, or at least at first glance. Why does this interface with one input cost as much as this one with two inputs? Well, turns out that's not the only thing we care about. Who'd have thought? So I sat down and compiled a list of things we do care about whenever shopping for one of these, so your experience can be slightly easier. The very first thing is the most evident one. It's the number of inputs. This is where you connect all your XLR cables and your quarter-inch jacks. Most modern-day interfaces come with combo inputs that can house both, so don't be confused if you don't have a dedicated socket for your instrument. The number of inputs you need will depend on how many things you need to connect to your interface at once, and if you do want to know more, I have a separate video that talks about it. The input talk, however, will not be complete without mentioning preamps. Audio interfaces are meant to be jacks of all trades and offer complete recording equipment in a budget-friendly package. If you aren't familiar with preamps, it's another metal box that microphones plug in, and they allow these microphones to sound a certain way. Their main goal is to make our microphones louder so we can hear them, and some preamps also have some pleasant sound qualities that we refer to as color. They sound a certain way. The bottom line is, we need preamps. We need them to get our mics to an audible level. Every audio interface will have preamps built in, but the quality of them will vary. That's why some interfaces will offer only one preamp, but go for the price of two, because the preamp is so good. Now, how much of that is simply marketing and technobabble and how much of it is an audible actual difference in the field, I'm going to leave for other professionals that are far better than me at spec sheets to discuss. But aside from color, which can be a matter of taste, a lot of the preamp choice discussion has to do with the noise level. It's how much noise the actual preamps and the interface make. The louder it's going to be, the more likely you're going to hear it in a recording, especially if you have to turn the volume up. Pay attention to the noise floor. We've talked about inputs, time to talk about outputs. It's where you plug your headphones and speakers. Most budget-friendly interfaces come with a single headphone jack, and you don't really need more unless you have friends. Headphone outputs are pretty much always quarter-inch jacks, the most common connector in audio, so you're likely going to need an adapter to plug your headphones. Although to be fair, some interfaces like my Audient ID4 come with both a 3.5mm jack and a quarter-inch, so you can use whatever, and the sound doesn't change. At the back of an interface, there are pretty much always two speaker outputs, one for the left one and one for the right one. But more enthusiast-grade interfaces can come with more speaker outputs, as seeing two sets of speakers is not exactly uncommon for creative professionals. I'm not going to go into reasons why, you can find out for yourself later down the line. Another thing that's a must for every audio interface under the sun is the ability to engage phantom power. I've made an entire video about it, but here's the gist. Some equipment, mainly condenser and some ribbon microphones, require some help to get going, and that help comes in the shape of extra voltage we just have to send their way. That's where this handy button comes in. But be careful. If your hardware doesn't need extra voltage, it likely doesn't expect it either, so the likelihood of internal circuitry damage is going to climb. Also, whenever shopping for an audio interface, pay attention to how many inputs are going to be affected by the phantom power. The best case scenario is that each of them will have its own dedicated switch, but cost cutting and all that. Spending a little time to look at the spec sheet can spare you a very expensive mistake. As far as other controls go, there's always going to be a way to control the volume of both your headphones and speakers, as well as the one of the input signal. So I'm just mentioning them in passing. But what you should be looking out for is a direct monitoring button. Engaging that little switch would make it so the signal that's being sent to the inputs is also reproduced with no latency in your headphones. Meaning that if you're speaking into a microphone with the switch engaged, you can hear what you sound like, which is extremely useful and will save you an ungodly amount of time fidgeting with your own settings and performance. The most common way to engage direct monitoring is a switch. However, some manufacturers, such as the above-mentioned Audient, went a different direction and essentially gave us a mix knob that allows us to decide how much of a blend you want there to be between system audio and your own audio. And this about does it for the main things you should be looking for. Of course, I don't think I have to say it, but keep track of the way your interface connects to your computer. Make sure you do have that input. USB-C is the absolute king here. Some other popular connectors are USB-B or FireWire. But that being said, there are going to be some extra connections you might want. We're talking MIDI connectors that allow you to plug instruments that support MIDI, and also some interlinking connectors that allow you to chain audio interfaces with each other to get a wider range of inputs without buying a whole new interface. These, however, are not as commonly used, and what's likely is that you know all about these already if you actually need them.